Hi everyone, I'm Alister Benn and you're watching Expressive Photography. Now, I'm actually on a trip to Iceland now, the first workshop of 2023 autumn. And I get so many emails asking about the equipment that I use and how I prepare for these trips and how I manage to get everything into one camera bag and how to deal with weight restrictions and all of that type of thing. I thought I'd deal with that in today's video. However, before I get to that, I wanted to try and sort of update you in terms of where we are with expressive photography, what we're hoping to achieve, the most dreadful summer that I've had, and how that's affected my confidence and my mental health, and the type of content that I'm producing for the YouTube channel and my just general well-being. So I think it's worth just having a bit of a kind of an update of where we are at expressive photography as we move into the autumn, and obviously being out and making more vlogs and getting out into the landscape again, and me basically being where I want to be, which is out there rather than sat behind the computer answering emails. When I started as a photographer, I did it to relieve stress. I did it to get out into the landscape and get away from my day job, which at the time was in international finance. Tons of stress, tons of travel, lots and lots of problems and struggles that we had to deal with on a daily basis. So getting out into the landscape with a camera was the best thing for me, and it really, really helped me with my mental health. I turned professional in about 2010. I released my first ebook in 2012 on night photography, and over the last 13 or 14 years have built a pretty successful business as a landscape photographer, as an educator, as a mentor. We run the forum. I publish a lot of ebooks and videos, and of course the Out of Darkness book itself. So all round quite a successful photography business. The YouTube side of things is a fundamental part of that, and making free content for you guys is a hugely important thing for us to do. And even though it's time consuming, and the big problem we had during the summer, of course, was when my mental health was going through the floor, it's very difficult to make uplifting and motivating content. Anyway, the bottom line was that I got COVID before I left Canada at the end of May, and was just unprepared for A, how sick I was going to be, and secondly, how long it was going to take me to recover. The physical fatigue and the exhaustion lasted well into late July, but the thing I was most unprepared for was that brain fog and the resultant depression that came with it. And it massively eroded my self-confidence. It really, you start to just feel like a fake and a fraud and a phony. And how can you talk about using creativity as a positive effect on your life when you're not really living it? Now, thankfully, as we get into the end of August and the beginning of September, I feel so much better. I think that whole brain fog thing has gone, and I can now look forward to flying off to Iceland tomorrow, actually, even though you'll be watching this on the Sunday when we'll already be in Iceland. So the importance of realizing that we are all just human, we all have our own problems and struggles, and this mirage or this veneer of inspiration on social media. You know, we've got 35,000 folks on YouTube that follow us. There's over 40,000 on Insta. You know, we've got a big mailing list. There's a lot of people who look to me for inspiration and some degree of motivation, and it's hard when you're not feeling it yourself. But the most important thing to realize is I'm just a normal guy, the same as you, or woman, if the case may be. You know, at the end of the day, we're just all the same. We all have the same struggles and problems. And photography is an incredibly powerful tool for us to use. But if you're not feeling it, forcing it's the last thing you can do. I've been very lucky. I've been sat playing guitar for most of the summer, and that's been an amazing release for me, you know, losing myself in different sounds and tones and playing angry music or calm and reflective music. So I do have other creative outlets which have been very, very useful to me over the summer. So creativity and creating the space to be creative in, I think, is a really important thing. Anyway, enough of this. We're moving into the autumn. I love the autumn. It always makes me feel more creative. I love the atmosphere of the misty mornings. And obviously heading off up to Iceland with 5 people from the forum is obviously going to generate an environment for being positive and creative. In terms of the gear I take with me, it's a bigger list and it's getting a longer amount or a bigger amount every year. The biggest problem I have is this, which is my Gitso, what is this, a GT 3543 XLS with the big spikes and my Arca Swiss C1 Cube on the top of it. This in its own right is a heavy thing, and obviously taking it or putting that in a case is the first thing. I need to take the spikes off, I need to take the head off, I need to take the leveling base off. But this is a big chunk of weight that I have to fit into my bag. However, I don't want to compromise the stability of having a big, good, solid tripod with me when I'm away on Iceland. The main reason for that is it can be a very windy place, and this thing isn't going to suffer from the vibration or the instability that a lighter, smaller tripod would be. I will actually have another smaller tripod with me, just a little lightweight thing for the vlogging, either for the GoPro camera or the Fuji, which I believe is an XS20, is a new vlogging camera I'm using, which I'm super happy with. It's absolutely brilliant. In terms of the big kit, as many of you know, in March there, I switched out from using my Nikon D850 and I moved to the Fujifilm GFX 100S. This is the 45 to 100mm zoom on it, magnetic case lens caps on all of my lenses here. This is an incredible camera. Of course, I'm going to use the longer focal length. In the past on Iceland, I've shot a lot at 400mm. This will be my first time on Iceland with a medium format system, so that in its own right is going to be exciting. The longest lens I do have is this, the 100 to 200. I don't have a teleconverter. There is a 1.4 available for this lens, but listening to various people, I've heard it's not that great. So I'm just going to use the 102 megapixels to crop in if I need to. But my experience so far with this lens is it's long enough for most of the things that I want to do. I think that's one of the key things with creativity, is that the tools you have is what you have, and wishing you had something else is always a bit pointless. I've got, you know, cupboards full of Nikon stuff. I've got macro lenses, I've got my 80 to 400, I've got extension tubes for this. If I'm going to, you know, I'm not going to take any of it just because I need to get it all in my f-stop Talopa camera bag, and this is the largest bag I can take as a carry-on, so that's the reason I'm taking this bag. I do have a bigger which I use in the UK, and you know, I can take my drone and all of that type of stuff, but on this trip I'm stripping it all back. The other lens I have is my 20 to 35. This is my wide-angled lens. All of these focal lengths are medium format focal lengths, so 20 equates to just over 16mm, but 16.5mm, something like that. So this is the widest angle lens. 45 to 100 takes me up to about 70 odd mil in equivalent, 70 something, 79 maybe. So this is more like a 35 to 80 type mil lens. Of course, my ever-present Case Revolution filter system. In this case, I have my CPL, a 3, 6 and a 10-stop ND filter. These I've been using since the spring and love them. Case have sent me some other filters that I'm going to be road testing while I'm away, and I want to introduce these to you. This is a combined circular polarizer and 3-stop ND filter. So it's actually the same size as a single ND filter, but it has an integrated circular polarizer. Now that And I have another one here, which is the, this is a 6-stop CPL and ND. So both of those are going to be coming with me, and I'm going to be road testing those. Excellent filters. Light pollution filter, we're hoping to do some auroras. There's sometimes some light pollution coming from nearby towns and villages. This filter is supposed to neutralize those color temperatures, so I'm looking forward to using that. This is a black mist filter, which is really good for creating like a diffused glow, particularly if you're shooting into the sun. So I'm going to be road testing that. And finally, this guy here, I spend a lot of money on lenses, and this is Case's new UV filter. And one of the things anyone will know about UV filters is that if you're shooting into the light, quite often you can get a reflection kind of bouncing off the lens and back onto the UV filter. This is amazing. It cuts away that reflection. So it's basically like, it's kind of a weird filter because it creates the effect of not having a filter on. So you won't get reflection with when you're shooting through your regular lens. However, you stick a UV filter on and you get this reflection. This removes that reflection. And the main reason for this is that this lens here is not far off £2,500. So I don't want to damage the front element of it. So obviously sticking UV filters in front of them, if there is going to be any bumps and scratches, I'd rather it was the UV filter rather than one of these lenses. This is everything that I'm taking. What it boils down to is how do I use it and what am I going to make and the images that I'm going to make. And as with all trips, I'm not coming into this with any expectations. I'm not going there visualizing the types of images I'm going to make. I'm happy to go and see what the conditions are, how the weather, how the place presents itself to me. And I think that's the best way of going on a trip. The last time I was in Iceland was with Adam Gibbs, Tom Heaton and Thor, which was back in the summer of, was it 2020 or 2021? So it's a couple of years since I've been to Iceland. I do have another workshop there in February of next year, so I'm looking forward to going back in the winter. And this may be something I do more on a regular basis, is getting back up to Iceland and taking workshops up there. The good news is that something good has come out of the darkness that I experienced over the summer. After the whole Out of Darkness book and producing that massive body of work and the stress of making that product and getting it shipped around the world, I think it was almost inevitable I was going to have some kind of relapse and just sort of a creative void where I suddenly felt I'd done my best work, or I was going to struggle to do something of that quality again. That pressure to perform, the pressure to be a good photographer and be seen to be a good photographer here on social media and on YouTube. You know, they're not real pressures at the end of the day. There's plenty of folk who've got far more stressful jobs than I do and have to put up with an awful lot worse than I do every day. The good news is I've lost about 8 kilos in weight since the beginning of July, so I'm feeling significantly better and don't need to buy any more big pants because I can now get into all my old smaller clothes. So on the whole, looking forward to moving forward. I think that is the best way of putting it. Thank you very much for watching. I know I've rambled on a little bit here and there, but I thought it's only fair for you guys who watch the channel and comment and subscribe to our work to kind of get an update of where I am right now, to realize that I am just a regular guy, the same as everybody else. We have ups and downs, good days and bad days. And at the end of the day, I'm very grateful to have a very, very expensive bunch of camera equipment to use when I'm out in the landscape. Thank you very much for watching. As always, comments are appreciated. Thumbs up, subscriptions, hitting the bell notification, all of that stuff. As I said, I'm up on Iceland with 5 people from the Expressive Photography Forum. This is our first EP forum workshop where it's just limited to people who are members of the forum. So we already kind of know each other. The forum is the beating heart of our creative output, and it is an amazing place. So if you haven't already done so, click on the link in the description to check out the EP forum. That's it for me. Next Sunday, I will be bringing you an interview I did before I left Scotland with the incredible William Neal. Bill, as I love to call him, has been a friend of mine for nearly a decade now, and is an incredible inspiration. He was one of Ansel Adams' students in Yosemite in the early 80s while Ansel was still working. His legacy and his body of work is just remarkable. So I really can't wait to share a very intimate and quite a quiet interview that Bill and I had. We had a really nice conversation, very honest, very down to earth, talking about, you know, the creative process and the pressures of creating, and maybe even the legacy that we leave with our photographs over the years, and the whole point of making portfolios, building up a body of work and being passionate about that body of work. So tune in next Sunday for my interview with Bill Neal. I look forward to getting back and bringing you some images from Iceland and some in the field content. And of course, I'll let you know how these filters behave in the real world. That's it. Bye for now.